Welcome back to another episode of the Blueprint Brocast. I'm Austyn Tokar.
And I'm Jay Cruz, and we are glad that you're back. Today, we had a jam-packed holiday, and it's weird just to say that it's 2024. That is the weirdest thing to me. I remember watching Back to the Future 2, and they were on the little hoverboard.
Yeah.
And it's like, it said that was going to happen in 2015, like in the movie.
Yeah, I remember everyone waiting for that in 2015 also.
Yeah, and so like there's this picture of like what they wear in 2015 in this hoverboard. I'm like, oh, that's gonna come out by then, not because of the movie, but just in general. Like, ooh, that's the future.
Yeah.
But we're like, what was it, 8 years past the future?
And they probably have it. They just like, they don't market it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, we're gonna hold this. Forget these guys.
Dude, there's all kinds of technology that exists. I think that we don't know about that. Government's holding out on us.
But you know what's also cool is that the free market and people's ability to, man, my allergies is killing me. Texas is ruining me. Ability to build whatever you want, sell whatever you want. Like you see all these different things you can get on Amazon, TikTok, all these different store shops.
Amazon and TikTok, those are two whole different like realms of things.
Yeah, but TikTok's trying to push their store so much so they become the main vendor for a generation. Like TikTok, I think, is the most used social media platform still. So, yeah. I
remember when it was first coming out, and Gary Vee was like, I guarantee you need to hop on TikTok right now because it's going to be the next big thing. And I'm like, oh, TikTok's lame. I hate TikTok. Yeah. And now
it was all dancing videos.
Yeah, now at least it's moved away from that a little bit. It still exists there. But I was like, I don't want to watch dancing videos.
But you see how dangerous it is now, though? Because like it's like the we have a brothers group, and we just send funny videos in there all the time. It's like Reels. Instagram basically pushed that much harder when TikTok took off. So, but TikTok is like 10 times more than that. Their algorithm, they'll push everything you set your sights on, and you'll be on there for hours just scrolling and scrolling. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and knows exactly what to send to you.
Yeah, but he was right.
Yeah, and nobody said anything about Threads, and Threads is kind of like just like an afterthought.
Threads is weird, bro. Like I don't go on there. I know people do use it, but it's like Twitter's still.
There's this other one that was like live podcasts. It was I forget what it was called, but it was basically like podcast rooms where people would have discussions.
Yeah,
and like it was really big.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
I don't remember what it was called, but it was really big, and people thought it was gonna be the next big thing or whatever it was, and it was a thing for like 2, maybe even 3 months. And then it just disappeared.
But the thing is, with live mode from Instagram and TikTok, what was the point? You also have things like Telegram and Zoom where you can just do live calls on there for people you know.
Yeah.
So there was really no point, because I don't think enough people would do like live podcasts in the first place where it would hit as hard for people.
But if Joe Rogan did a live podcast, it'd probably...
Well, everyone would watch that.
But it has to be like on the upper echelon of things, though. It can't be just like your random, 20, 30,000 views. Like,
but it's also like, I don't even really consider it a podcast. It's probably more like a live
show,
talk show,
yeah,
right? Because podcasts are too edited.
Ours are barely edited, guys. Like barely. I will take out maybe like 30 seconds of an entire episode.
But you'll see all these really famous podcasts. They're definitely like, they probably go 5 hours and they dwindle it down to 3.
Yeah,
they take a good chunk out of there from editing.
I have a friend that I was trying to ask him like, hey, what do you do with your brother when he comes into town?
Yeah,
he's like, I'm the type of guy that just like, I'm gonna do whatever. Like I'm down for whatever. Like if they say that let's go do this thing, I'm all about going. It doesn't matter. Like, I'm spontaneous. I just go do stuff.
Yeah.
I think I'm like that. I want to say I'm like that with certain people. Like I'll say yes to things, but then other times I'm like, no, that's outside the scope of what I'm willing to do.
Yeah.
But for the most part, like I don't say no probably enough, I would say, in my life. Yeah. I used to work at a church, and I have a lot of skills that I can use and a lot of things that I can do. And so if there was a space that no one else could do it, I would be like, oh yeah, I could do that. And then something else would come up and I'd be like, oh yeah, I could do that.
Yeah.
What do you say? And I ended up getting burnt out. But like, what would you say? Like, what are some ways that we can set boundaries as just people, for anything to not burn ourselves out, but maybe not put ourselves out when we shouldn't be putting ourselves out, and just protecting our own time.
I think the most important thing you need to know is that when you're saying yes to someone else, that means you're putting yourself on the back burner. So whether that's a good thing or a bad thing depends on your situation, right? So if I'm telling you yes for something like you want me to do a project or something on the computer or whatever it is, edit something, even though I don't do any of that. But I have things to do with coaching. I have to make posts or do client updates and all that stuff. I'm saying that stuff is less important. My job is less important, and saying something else is more important than that in that moment. If I say, yes, I'll do it, you have to really consider that in all things you do. So really you're saying you're less important. It seems kind of petty to say that, but it's exactly what you're doing. Because if something were to happen, like say that client gets upset, like, hey, you didn't get back to me on time, that's on you. That's not on the person who asked you to do something. That's going to reflect badly on you. So you're going to take the burn on the butt with that one.
See, I have this thing in me that doesn't want to let people down, right?
Yeah.
So when someone asks me to do something, it's because I feel like, maybe I'm wrong, I feel like they're asking me because they have not a dependency, but like I am dependable.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, let me ask Jay because I know that he'll come through and that he will do it well.
Yeah.
And so like I have a hard time like, oh, like, no, I can't do that. When I know that they might not have somebody else to do it, because I'm like, I'm the one who does it. I had a friend that was like at 10:30 at night, and there's a student at Baylor that needed a ride somewhere. He had just got out of the hospital. He called an Uber, and the Uber came up to pick him up, and it wasn't the person on the. It was a different person.
Get in the car, I'm your Uber.
Yeah. So he was like, no, I'm not getting in the car. So then he calls his mom, and his mom calls this other person. And so the other person's like, hey, you want to go with me to go pick him up? And so I'm like, all right. So we go pick him up, and he comes into the car, and he looks at me, and he's like, oh, I thought you said you were here to pick me up with your wife. And I was like, yeah, I'm not his wife. And it was funny because now we're not even like in a system of Uber or anything like that. We're complete strangers.
Yeah.
And he gets in the car with us anyways. But but for me, like that opportunity for me to go help pick this kid up and bring him home, because it was like, 10:30 at night. There's no buses out. Uber was his only thing. But now he doesn't trust Uber because the wrong guy showed up. For me, I'm like, man, I get to help somebody. So like, even though like, hey, that's my bedtime, man. Like I'm ready to go to bed.
Yeah.
I need my rest. I can work out the next day and all whatever. Like, I don't know, when it comes to like helping somebody, like I have a really hard time saying no. And I think sometimes I should, but I like what you said. Oh, you're saying that you're not important. Like my own things are important. Yeah. In my situation, in that scenario, I'm willing to lose a little bit of sleep to help somebody. But I 100% understand what you're saying. And like, hey, if this is going to take time away from my job that where other people have already got my yes, I can't say yes to something else when now by saying yes to that, I'm saying no to my previous engagement. Yeah. Like I 100% agree, and I get that.
It's just a hierarchy of importance though.
Yeah.
Like obviously the client is more important because they're paying you. I'm not getting paid to do whatever you might like ask me to do or something, right? That's your livelihood. In this situation, it's like, oh, I could just drop a couple hours of sleep. That's fine. Like it's a one-off. It's like one of those once in a blue moon situations. Like, hey, this kid needs some help. He needs someone to pick him up. Like, of course you're gonna do it. It's a morality thing, right?
Yeah.
If you just imagine if you go to bed, like, not my problem. What is that line from Spider-Man?
I don't see why that's my problem.
Yeah. That's hilarious. I love that line.
Yeah.
All right, I forget the part where that's my problem.
Yeah,
that's
the
line.
Yeah,
but just think about that. Like you're gonna let someone chill at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, some street wherever, maybe Baylor, but still like it's cold. They're probably outside.
Yeah.
Think of the dog in the rain meme. You're like, I'm gonna go to bed. No, you're gonna go help that person. Yeah.
Yeah, I think when you said like a project specifically, like a lot of people ask me to do like a video project, and that takes up a lot of my time. So like I'm over here trying to edit like our podcast. I'm over here trying to edit stuff for YouTube, and the Christmas video that I made, like it's a whole separate video. It's outside of the realm of what I normally do. So I made this Christmas video for my family to kind of like present on Christmas. It was like a Christmas from 2018, and it was us in our old house. So like it was like the last like Christmas we had there, and so we had this big get together. So it was this video that I had like cooking for like a long time, and Dad's like, I was wondering when that video was gonna pop back up, because like I think he expected, like 2 months from now I get the video, but it wouldn't have meant anything to him then, because like the memory of the house would still be with him.
But also like he was used to you guys popping videos out pretty quickly,
Yeah.
Other things. So it's like,
So
for him, it's like, oh yeah, it'd be easy for him to do that. But that doesn't know the technical side of editing and all that stuff, piecing together stuff, making it look pretty and all that.
Yeah, that part didn't concern me that much. It was more like this felt like the exact right time because the entire family was together. And so anyways, all that to say is that took away from other things, and I had to seriously like slip it in between like my other priorities to get it done. And it was pieced together like, an hour here, an hour there, an hour there. But I didn't make that the main priority because I had other things to do. Albeit I had 5 years to complete it, but
you bringing that up is good because a lot of the times we get put in these situations like, oh, am I saying no to myself by saying yes to this other person? Those can be completely avoided if you were just smart about your time in the first place. So a lot of people just like to jerk off their time doing whatever, and someone asked them a while ago like, hey, can you do this for me? And you're like, no man, I got things I got to do. And reality is you don't. You may have it later on, but you can certainly fit that project in that they had. So a lot of things can be avoided completely if you just were pretty smart about your time. But I think for you, or maybe I don't know if it's all the brothers and sisters in general, they're used to saying yes because of how you were raised. I'm still considered like the only child, only child of dad's. So I got a lot of whatever I wanted. So I could say a lot of things like no. I won't do this. I won't do that. I was babied a lot. So I think it was much easier for me to learn to say no to things faster than you guys. Like, oh no, because I'm not saying I'm a selfish person. I'm just saying like, because of how I grew up, I can learn to do it much quicker than you guys. Because of how you guys grew up, you're used to like, oh, I got to help this person, put them ahead of myself.
Yeah.
Which is,
there was no one ahead of you at that point because you're the youngest. There's no one.
And you guys were still there at the house, but it didn't change the fact of how I got treated.
Yeah, I think this goes back to like who you hang out with. And, I was involved with the church like super heavily, like all the time. And I mean, that's been since I was like 15 years old. So there's always opportunities to help other people or serve other people. So like it's very natural and normal for me to like put someone else before myself. But the only time that I say I truly do say no is when it comes to family stuff. If I have family going on, it's a no to everything else. Like anybody else asks me something, doesn't matter almost what it is. If my family needs help with something, I'm there first. And I think most of the time when someone needs help, I mean, if everybody just helped their own family, they wouldn't be asking people from the outside, for as much help. But what about the opposite end of the spectrum though? Like maybe, you're saying yes or no to somebody that's asking you. Are you somebody that even asks for help? Are you someone that's like, I need help with something, so let me ask?
I'm very much a person who likes to do things on their own. I'll ask dad every now and then. I just don't like to put that bearing on somebody. And it's not because I can't. It's just because like, how should I put it? It's not because I can't, and it's not because I wouldn't want that to happen, right? Like I wouldn't want someone to ask me for this. Like I'm totally fine if you ask me for stuff. I'm just not a person who wants to. I have this feeling that I'm burdening someone when I ask them for stuff. But it's also a thing of like I'm very determined to do it myself as well. So let's say on the team when someone's always asking, hey, do you need anything from me? I never ask for, even though I do need something, I never ask for it because I know it's not important enough to where I can't get it done on my own. Now, in the long run, For certain items that might be very time inefficient, right? Because if they know exactly what to do and I don't, and I'm trying to figure it out, I'm just wasting hours trying to figure it out. And eventually I learn it. But, you know, if you're trying to be smart about things, it's okay to say, hey, I need your help, or hey, I need this, that kind of stuff.
Do you think that's it's a flaw or a weakness that you, or like a pride thing that you don't, or is it like genuinely you don't want to inconvenience somebody else, or you don't want perception that like, oh, I don't know how to do stuff, or I'm weak and I need help? Like, is it that, or is it like truly just like, hey, I just don't want to inconvenience you?
I think it's a bit of both, because it's like in my own mind, I'm like, I can definitely get this done by myself. I can figure it out. But then I know it's a flaw because, what if it needs to be done quicker, and then I just never asked for help when it should have been done sooner in a much more timely manner. But it's also, I don't want to inconvenience that person as well, because I think, everyone wants to live their lives. Everyone's doing something. Everyone's time is important to that person specifically. So when someone else comes into your life and they ask for something, you're asking to take away a piece of their life. That's just how I think about things.
No, that's the way you put that is like so like extreme,
People are like,
bro.
Exactly. People are like, what the heck? Like,
You're taking a piece of my life.
but
away.
if you really think about it, like how, you only get so many days to live, right? So I tend to overthink in that aspect. Like, I think that's just watching anime growing up. All those euphemisms coming from there, but you are taking away essentially a piece of their life.
Because like, here's the thing, like I'm the same way. Like I don't want to inconvenience anybody. I don't want to ask for help, but I feel like it's a little bit of both too. Like I don't want someone to think that I can't do something, because I feel like I can do anything. I just need to learn how to do it, and I can do it. Yeah. And I like having the skill, like the process of like, okay, it might take me 5 hours to do this. I could ask you and you can show me in 5 minutes, but like, are you going to like show me, or are you just going to like do it for me? Because like, I want to actually know how to do it. So I don't know whether it's partly control, like, oh, let me control the situation and let me like do it. Because so I have an issue right now with that's not a program. It's hard to explain, but I'm sure somebody knows, but like, I just don't know how to ask. And I'm sure someone can just figure it out in like five seconds.
Yeah.
But I just don't know who or what to ask. But I want to ask, but like in this situation, this is like the first situation I've ever been in where I'm just
Google.
like, dude, Google is the issue. Yeah. I'm having a problem with Google. Anyways, I just don't know how to ask. So maybe I'll Google who to ask Google. But that's the problem though, because Google, this is the one situation where it's not giving me the answer. So
you can ask Chat GPT.
Oh, I probably could ask Chat.
You can run that through a whole algorithm in there, and just like go down a little funnel and then come up with an answer, and it should give you a pretty good answer.
Do you think that people I think people kind of generally understand where someone's at, and the reason why people ask me is because they know that there's a good chance I'd say yes. Yeah. Do you think that people should wire themselves, or like present themselves in such a way that they stay to one side of that? Like, okay, hey, I want to give them the perception that I'm always going to say no, but I'll say yes sometimes, or give them the perception that I always say yes, but then have the freedom to say no. Like, do you understand what I'm asking?
I don't think people should think about that in that manner at all. I think you should think about it and how you actually feel about it. So like, if you feel that like, okay, this person really needs me here, I know I have time for it, I can put these minor projects on the back burner to help them out, you do it. But if you really don't have time, you can't. You just tell them no. Like it's the reality of things. Like, I just can't. You want to be recognized of that person. Like, his yes is his yes and his no is his no. It's there's no second thoughts about it. You're like, oh, is he really busy or something? You want to become a person that's just known to like be very straight and forward with somebody.
Yeah, I get that, because I think people think that they're busier than they are too, and they say no to stuff.
Yeah.
I need to be more busy, and I think the reason why I say yes is because like I'm okay with like, oh, I can put that off and go do the thing, but the first thing was the important thing. So
yeah. But here's what I think about busy. It's like, you might want to get busier, and you think that you're doing things in that moment. Like, okay, I want to do this, but you actually want to do that item. whatever it is. Like you want to learn coding. Do you really want to learn coding, or would you be better suited to like just watch TV?
Better suited to watch TV rather than learning coding.
Yeah. I mean, what is your reason to learn coding? Is it like, oh, I'm gonna make lots of money with this? Like, do you know have a plan of action for that? It's just like a very thought out thing. Like a lot of people say, I have to do this, I have to do that. A lot of the times you don't need to do this and that. It's just like, why don't you just use that time for something that you can just like, max and relax, have some downtime. Like you might have planned downtime. Well, now you got some more, right?
Man,
then you could be more efficient on projects you actually need to be busy on.
I make myself busy. If there's nothing going on, dude, I just like, okay, time to think of a project to do. And I go start doing a project. This whole wall behind us exists because I'm like, well, I want to do this thing. I want to do podcasts, but I want to make it
But that's
excellent.
different though, because you're enhancing the podcast, the environment by doing this, right? You want to be, this is for you. Like you built this environment because you don't want to be in some shack, right? Doing a podcast. Like here we are, here in my shack again. Here's my wall books. What is it, that Ty Lopez commercial? Here in my garage. But you want to have a nice area to do a podcast in, right? This was all purposeful and intentful. Like you had this well thought out idea. Like this is what I foresee the podcast looking like, and then you built it.
It's halfway there. We're still building.
Yeah, you're really thinking about things like, do I want to be busy? No. Well, don't be busy. Do you want to be busy? Okay, but what's the most important thing I can do when I'm busy? Have real ideas and progress at them.
I think in general, everybody should have like some main priorities of the things that they do. Like, hey, I need to make time for myself.
Yeah.
Number one, absolutely paramount, more than anything else, time for yourself. I know it sounds selfish, but like you need time to develop yourself, time to like, to just sleep, take a shower, take care of yourself in general, work out, those things, time for yourself.
Well, people just need to spend more time with them. So how much time do we spend on the internet? We're just talking to people and thinking like, oh, I'm spending time with myself, but you're really scrolling on the internet. That's not really time with yourself. That's time alone, but not actually with yourself. So a lot of people don't know who they really are in that regard.
Yeah, and so that's a great differentiation between time with yourself and time alone. Because time alone, like if you're scrolling, you're hanging out with these other people.
Yeah,
they're not hanging out with you, but you're hanging out with them. Yeah. Time with yourself is like, hey, like just in quiet. For me, it's in the Word and in praying, and then also like my workout time. Like sometimes I'm with other people, but like that's time for like myself, and pushing my limits and my boundaries and like learning. I'm still learning about myself in those moments. After that, it's like, hey, prioritizing my family, and then pretty much like work and career after that, and then after that everything else comes. So like if whatever it is, like as long as I prioritize whatever it is that someone's asking me to do, if it takes precedent over those three things, then I probably won't do it. If it's really short, maybe I would, but if it takes up a majority of my time where I can't do the things that I needed to do, then that's how I can prioritize stuff and say no to something. And so that's why that one example that I gave in the beginning, going to pick up the kid at Baylor, it didn't take over those three things. So I was able to say, okay, yes, I'll do that.
Yeah.
I help out with a couple other groups, and they're at odd times. Some of them are really early in the morning, some are really late at night. But I get all the stuff that I need to do done during the day. So like those are, I'm able to do those and prioritize those, 4th, 5th, 6th, so on. Yeah. Because I have my main priorities of the things that I need to do.
That deep dish.
Yeah. Austin just made like some deep dish pizza, 2 of them, and they were delicious. I'll say that. Also did not aid towards my macros for today, but I just did legs yesterday. Yeah. So legs yesterday. So we're doing fine.
Yeah, that's fine. Like I tell every client athlete this, like just enjoy the holidays for what it is. You don't have to, splurge all the time, but if you're having a dinner with the family, have it. But I think the reason why keeping busy has such a bad taste in my mouth is because like I know so many people who you ask, oh, so what's been going on in your life? Oh, just keeping busy. And then when I look at their life and their day, like when I see them, in Monterey, it's kind of small quarters, right? You'd see everybody. So when people would say it to me all the time, like, oh, I'm just really busy. I would see these people and they're like, oh yeah, I got this meeting. And then I'd see them down at the coffee shop during the meeting, but like they turn their screen off and then they're just like playing video games. Like what? Like, this is during the COVID.
You're thinking of like a very specific person right now.
Exactly. But I'm just picking at like multiple situations where it's like, oh, I have this meeting. And every time there's a meeting, especially when they started doing the at home work stuff, it's like how many people like that makes me think of the green screen guy. You seen that guy?
Yeah.
It's too funny.
Hey, speaking of that dude, when did he get like a big butt? Like, where did that come from? I know, but why did that become a thing?
I don't know, but it's pretty funny. It's just like it's so goofy. You're just like, what?
Yeah. The green screen guy. I'll put a photo of him here somewhere.
You should do the running photo of him.
Yeah.
But like whenever that at home work thing happened, like so many people were just like, oh yeah, I got to do these meetings. And then I start realizing like how many of these meetings are actually important. How many of them just wastes of time? Like how much time do companies waste doing these dumb meetings that, probably don't even need to happen?
Yeah. Elon Musk once said, what we should do is we put a, I think it was him, but put a timer up on the back wall of whatever meeting you're having, and then put everybody's salaries in, like calculated into that time clock. And so for every second that goes by, you tick off the dollars of what that meeting is costing you. Yeah. So as you're having the meeting, you can watch like just the amount of money you're spending, where they could be doing something else more effective. Because most of the times, even when I was in meetings, it was like, dude, this could be an email with 5 bullet points and we could just move on with life.
Yeah. I remember Stacia was talking about something, like I've overheard her at some of her meetings, and I know for a fact, and I'm like, oh, those are things that you could just like do over a freaking email.
Yeah.
Like some sort of packet, maybe like you read over, you don't have to go over that together. But I also think of The Office. Just like some of their office meetings, they'd be like, oh, it's time to celebrate someone's birthday. That show's great. But I think of like, that's what I think of when people say they're busy. I'm like, you're not busy. You're just filling time.
Yeah. I had a friend that she posted a reel of her year, and she's like, man, this is a busy year. And like 80% of like the quick snippets were of her taking shots. And I was like, you didn't have a busy year. That's not busy. Like what in the world?
Yeah. There's a lot. I like those because you see a lot of people who do stuff and a lot of people who don't do stuff. So like, and then this is where I'm trying to get away from more. Like my life revolves around the gym and only the gym. I would like it to expand more as it was. Obviously you have to be like fully immersed in something and then expand back out. But I see people do a lot of traveling, not even like far traveling, just like local traveling, doing stuff. And I look back at my pictures throughout the year. It's like I'm doing stuff, but it's not as often as I would like it to be. And it's not in situations in particular that I would like them to be in as well.
Yeah. That's the hard part about gym life, is that sometimes you have a goal and you can't take like trip breaks because like, oh, my food's gonna get messed up, my gym schedule's gonna get messed up. So like you really have to pick and choose those times.
You can make it work for sure. Like there's always, like if you're talking about tracking food macros, Chick-fil-A, Whole Foods, that stuff exists where you can still track your food. It's just like sometimes it's hard to stick to that plan. you got to be on it though.
Yeah,
that time.
All that to say, I don't think that this necessarily was a podcast about priorities, but like that's like when to say no and yes to things, and how to prioritize yourself. Because if everybody like spent, like, not to be like in a selfish way and like say, hey, spend all your time with yourself, but spend a good portion of your time working on yourself, so that you can so that you're somebody that can add to a conversation, so that you're someone that can add to an environment, so that you're someone that can add to the world in general. Because we have a lot of people that aren't working on themselves. I think we talked about those people that were making, they were like real life emojis, and people would put an emoji up and then they would just make the face or whatever it was, and they would get paid money doing this. And so like you're making money, but like the way that you're doing it is you're wasting a bunch of people's time because they're just watching you make faces. Like that's not adding anything to like the world. That's not adding anything into your environment, and it's ridiculous. Do something that matters. You know, like be somebody that matters and do something that matters.
You know what this reminds me of? It's the guy that constantly has a need to level up. I got to read this book. I got to learn this. I got to learn that. Before he even does anything.
Oh yeah.
It's like, you know, you do, like the self-help books, they're great, but they're literally just that. You don't learn anything more than, you know, like 10 things. There are 10 things you could possibly learn in self-help. And a lot of that is just doing stuff. Just do it. You know, you don't need to read the same book over and over and over, essentially between 10 different books. It's the same book, right?
Yeah.
I think people need to get away from reading and start doing or spending time with just yourself. Stare at a blank wall. Go on a walk in nature. No headphones.
Mm-hmm.
Meditate. I can't really do that stuff. Like I get too antsy, but that's why walking and staring at a wall works. When you can, if you can't sit there and do that hum stuff, you know, staring at a blank wall works. I like that one.
Well, it goes back to just like if you're going to develop your body, so what you intake something and you exercise it, you know, like you take in some sort of fuel, or you're taking some sort of resource, and then you exercise or work out, whatever that is. In the same way, okay, fine, read a book, watch a podcast, listen to a podcast, take something in that helps develop you, but then go do something with it. Yeah. Like it doesn't become something if you just keep pulling it in, you end up becoming fat.
Don't just absorb. You got to exert as well. You got to be able to, you know, teach it. They say the best way to learn is to teach. You know, teach someone else smaller than you in a fashion that they can understand. So,
what do you mean by smaller than you?
You know, like a little kid.
Oh, okay.
Go up to a little kid. That's the easiest way to start. Right? You know, you're gonna try to tell some high school kid, and the kid's like, "What are you talking about? I don't get it." You know.
Yeah.
Like, just imagine, let's say some nuanced point you learned, and you're gonna try to tell Tristan that. He's like, "Why are you telling me this, Dad?" But if you tell a kid, he'll think it's like a little kid. He's like, "That's the coolest thing in the world." Wow.
Yeah, that's true. I remember I was reading a Calvin and Hobbes book, and Calvin's asking his dad, like, "Hey, like, how does the garage door open?" And he's like, "Well, whenever I press this button, there's a little man in there that turns the motor." Like, you know, you think whenever you can tell a kid anything, and they're gonna believe it. But like, man, I want to like that's what I just said a little bit while ago. Like my resolution was to make the world a better place by reaching out to young dudes and helping them, mentor them, and take them down a path that I've been down. Yeah. It's hard. Life is hard, definitely. But like I think we need to do a better job of saying yes to the things that matter, and saying no to things that just take up our time in our space when they don't need to.
Yeah. Spend less time being busy and more time on yourself.
Yeah.
Like all those times you're saying, "I'm busy. I got to do this. I got to do that." Like just take a mental note. Actually, do a written note. Write it down. Look at it. Like, what are you actually doing? That's so busy. Like, and what are you doing in those moments? You say you got a meeting. Like, are you actually in the meeting, or you just green screening it and playing video games?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think everybody, like you go out there, you guys listen to this, write down those 3 things. What are the things that are your priority? Like, hey, spending time with yourself, developing yourself, your family, your career. Obviously, if you believe in God, obviously hanging out with God goes before all that. But and part of developing yourself is yourself, hanging out with God. But that family, your career, whatever it is that your line of income, and then put those 3 things somewhere where you're gonna see it all the time, on your bathroom mirror, at your desk, at your office, whatever it is. And then whenever someone asks you to do something, you just say, "Hey, like, is it gonna bump one of these off? Like, is it gonna come before one of these 3 things?" Then you know where your priorities are, and you know whether you can say yes or no to those things. Because your time is valuable. And like Austin said so many times, even for being so young, he's like, "Man, I only have so much time, so I'm not going to just give it to anybody. You know, I'm not going to give you part of my life." And while that sounds dramatic, I mean, it is true. Yeah. So go out there in the world today, in your life, and do something that matters. Yeah. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for listening, and we shall see you in the next video.